Hey, we just let you
Where's
know
it
ahead of time.
you said on the place on East Lindsay?
Yeah.
I think I remember the only time I've been there is when we did the public transit sales tax. We actually did
All right, everybody, it is 4 o'clock. We are live, so we'll go ahead and get started with the Community Planning and Transportation Committee meeting for Thursday, February 26th, 2026. And we have 4 items on the agenda, and staff did just let me know there was a problem with the system getting the attachments published, but they are now on there for anybody that needs that. The first item on the agenda is a presentation of January public transit report. We have Taylor here with city staff to lead the discussion.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. This item on the screen is the second agenda item, so we'll get to that. But the first, as always, is the memo that you guys have in your packet, going over some updates for the transit program and our services. There's the general stuff in there, just the ongoing data about our vehicle maintenance and vehicle procurement, which we're happy to say that we only have one bus that should be replaced that's not on order, and we'll see if we can get to that next fiscal year. I will say there was an update on our 3 big buses that are on order due to, and this will get into the budget discussion a little bit, but due to tariffs, the manufacturer Gillig got an amendment through the state of Washington contract to potentially pass along some costs to us, even though we have our buses on order. So we might see that a year from now when those buses are being built. So just putting that out on radar, and that could be a potential budget impact for next fiscal year when they go to the assembly line.
Where are they made?
In California, and it starts with an L, but I don't remember the town now. Just east of San Francisco.
Tariff on parts that it takes
Yeah,
to build.
it's probably tariffs on parts.
Yeah, on parts and goods.
It goes to the United States, or they're assembled in the United States.
I should say that it's up to, but depending on what it is at the time, that's, and it would be a request, so those are the things we'll have to work with, and we just talked about that today, and so it's a really recent update. So still figuring that out, but of course want to keep that top of mind. I'll honestly move to the ridership because I know we have a lot of other things on the agenda. For January, for Embark Norman, we had just shy of 35,000 rides, and last January we were almost at 40,000. For the service as a whole, comparing the service dates from January to January, we had 1 less weekday in this January, plus there was 4 weather days compared to 1 last January. So I think that has to do with why we dipped this past month. Obviously the snow doesn't help when people have to inherently walk to and from bus stops and things. So, but we did go down. Interestingly, plus ridership actually increased by about 1,000. So we'll keep monitoring that and watching for that. And then also interestingly, the bikes and other mobility devices increased from 608 last January to 926. So even with the snow and those weather days, we still saw more bikes and other mobility devices in our buses, which is a good thing.
Pretty significant increase in the airport traffic too, 21% on the fixed route Monday through Friday.
Yep. So there was a little bit of increase on that route, and then because there's such heavily ridden ridership on the East Lindsay route, and that can have to do with if the university closes. Obviously, that route has a lot of apartment complexes on it and serves a big student population. But yeah, there were some increases, but overall, we did see that decrease. So
29.7% total for Saturday fixed route, and every route shows an increase. Westheimer being 92%.
Yeah, and I think that has to do with, so we had 1 less weekday of service, but 1 more Saturday of service.
Oh, okay.
So we kind of traded those, but overall, we saw a decrease probably with that.
Okay.
On the ridership as a whole. And then for Norman On Demand, really quickly, the last performance report in this packet, we had 1,813 riders in January compared to 3,272 last January. Again, just feeling out the rate increase that was implemented in September, and just really letting that service settle in. Because it is that on-demand service, though, the operator VIA is able to scale back on hours of service. So we are hopefully going to see a little bit of savings by the end of the fiscal year for this contract. But if they do notice an increase in ridership, they can ramp it back up. They just kind of hold that pulse really tightly so that way they can modify it as they go week to week. So
I feel like I'm not seeing them on Campus Corner anymore, hardly. Well,
yeah.
that's what the reason is for. Jeff, thank you.
I'm happy to end this item and go to the next one if you're ready.
Any questions about transit ridership report stuff?
So the second item is fiscal year 2027 Fund 27 transit budget discussion. I thought I'd do like a quick spin around in my chair for this and the next item. But we're just gonna run through kind of some history, where we're showing the projections for next year, and then talk about some of the things we've been talking about for the last 6 or 7 or 8 months that you all kind of wanted us to flush out as an expense possibly, but get some direction on next year's budget. I know we've been talking a lot about general fund, but ours is impacted by sales tax as well, so there's some things to consider. So some of the history with the transition of the transit service from OU that happened in July 2019. There's a bit of timeline before that, but that's the effective date. And we began that first year of contract with Embark Operations. I mentioned the public transit sales tax that passed in November of 2019. So we were really busy that first year or two doing things like this while also standing up a transit program. But that, we're happy to say passed with, I think, about 72% approval rating, really robust campaign. And it was actually just a reminder, 1/4 cent was coming offline from the building of the county jail that the county had. And they were only going to request 1/8 or 1/2 of that from the voters. So I think every city in the county looked for a proposition to ask the voters to fund something else. And this is what council decided on at the time.
And if I recall, this transition had not really been done before, and it took a couple of years or 1.5 years or so. Act of Congress, governor's signature is what it took for us to even get to the point where we could ask voters to approve a sales tax because of federal funding allocation.
Yeah.
It was quite the process.
It was a big to-do. And my memory is I think I wasn't here at the time, but the city received a letter August 2018. So it was less than a year, I think, to really mobilize and get it going. It was a fast track.
Yeah.
So still haunts some of our dreams or nightmares, you know.
Yeah. And getting Congress to
and then
vote on something.
This is really, and there's another slide after this, but we did a lot of work after that just to stand it up and get things going. But that initial goal, stabilize the service.
I just wanted to add, never missed a day of service. The day we ended OU and the day the city took it over, it did not stop running.
They've given us a little bit of a time frame, a little heads up, so we're able to maneuver in advance, and we're able to do it. I was on the edges of it. I wasn't directly in the middle of it, but it was a large undertaking and very impressive that it was able to be done in the time frame it was.
And thankfully OU was willing to work with us even after that transition. We leased space from them at their garage for a while. They actually ran the paratransit service for 3 additional months after that date, even though we were technically paying them to operate it. So they were good partners in that transition.
Brick Street transfer station on campus.
Right.
Kept using that until we found the
So
downtown spot.
So yeah, we stabilized the service, and as we were going along, I mentioned the vehicle replacement in the last item, but we're close to doing that. There was a lot of work that first 2 or 3 years to get grants and get those vehicles purchased and in the fleet. Almost every vehicle we inherited needed to be replaced or was going to obviously be replaced, needed to be replaced in the next few years. Very quickly, we realized that we needed to update our long-range transit plan, local plan, and we went through that process for about a year and got it adopted in June of 2021, the Go Norman Transit Plan. We built and moved into a new operations maintenance facility, what we call the Transit and Public Safety Maintenance Facility up there on North Base in January 2022. Scraping together funding, and we had some CARES Act dollars for transit that we were able to allocate about $5.1 million that really saved that combined project with Norman Forward for the Parks Maintenance Facility, just a really unique project. So got that done. One of the main ticket items we needed to really get the transit operations going And then, as was mentioned, we moved to the Norman Transit Center in October 2023 after continuing to use the Brook Street location.
Maintenance facility it also works on all of our big trucks, right?
It works on fire trucks, yeah.
So it's the emergency, the PSST also put some funding in, so it's the fire trucks and then all of the transit fleet, and then the other large vehicles, the other trash trucks and other large equipment is actually on the north side of Da Vinci at the old fleet facility.
But it did help because the fire trucks were being taken care of at that north facility, so we had more space, be able to move around and gain some square footage, especially for trains, obviously, because we had no facility and we had nowhere to put them. Continued history, as we were going through this process, we tried to make incremental gains in the service. Councilmember Holman, or Mayor Holman, I'm sorry, may remember that Saturday service was discontinued about a year before we took it over, I believe. Yeah. And then a year after we took it over, we reinstituted it, which was a great addition. We didn't have any weekend service at that point. We initialized fundamental route changes with the new transit center, going from those large loop routes to more bi-directional routes, which we think led to some of the gain in ridership and more user-friendly service, with some hiccup or some cuts that we had to make in areas, which was hard, but we worked through those, and I think we came up with a better service, but some areas did have to be cut. And then added frequency on Route 112, which was added in October of 2024. So, and then one of the more bigger items that we added was the microtransit service known as Norman On Demand in August 2023. After about a year or so of discussion with council on microtransit service in general, we came up with this late night service and Sunday service for microtransit, which is really minivans on a more transportation network company type of model of book it on the app. They'll come to the curb and pick you up and take you where you need to go. And we partner with the OU Student Affairs Office for that. Jordan Amati is here actually representing. I appreciate him being here. And Sunday service is actually the first priority in the Go Norman Transit Plan, so we were able to check that box as long as that service is operating.
And that was an idea of two council members that could not have been more different and really didn't like each other very much. But they came together to push for that. So that's how we ended up with it.
So these are these aren't formal, these are more of what Taylor's come to understand over the last 6-7 years of our transit budget goals. So self-sustaining, no general fund subsidy if we can. That has been hit or miss. Things happen, we have to figure them out, and we've been appreciative of council's support, but that's the goal. Increase service incrementally, like I talked about, and then try to seek grant funding, which we've been really good at the capital funding, and that's really competitive, and that's what's generally available. There isn't a lot of operating competitive dollars out there, and even if there is, it's 2, maybe 3 years of operating dollars, and then you have to foot the bill. So capital, unfortunately, is much easier to come by for grant funding.
Which would be the purchase of new fleet, purchase of buses, the cutaways.
Right.
Those items are what have been very successful in doing with a fleet replacement.
Yep. If we have facility needs, we can potentially go after those as well through the capital funding. Getting into next year's Fund 27, which is the Transit and Parking Fund projections. I'm not going to go through every revenue and expense, but you can see on the left, our lion's share of our revenues is the FTA Section 5307 grant apportionment, 2.8 million, almost 2.9 million now. And then the sales and use tax through that 1/8 of a cent dedicated. There's some other miscellaneous ODOT, Norman Regional, and bus stop advertising. We get to about 6.9 million in revenues. The expenses are what we're looking at next year for fleet repair transit. It's about 700,000. Staff, fleet staff have done a great job of really putting pen to paper and trying to identify some savings. And we've actually been able to identify quite a bit. You can see there about 103,000 to some operating expenses. So we are cutting some of our sublet, things like that, where we take repairs outside. And then also, and some of those gains are because the fleet is so new. Now, as the fleet gets older, that might change the dynamic. And then there's a transit service technician that, because the fleet got newer, we don't necessarily need as much staff time to take care of the buses. we're proposing that we could eliminate to save some dollars rather than budget that position that hasn't been filled. So that adds up to about 170,000 in savings that we're going to propose. Transit and parking administration, that's about 753,000 for city staff time, but also includes some other miscellaneous items like our we do in-service accounts, so that our fleet fuel and stuff like that is built into that. It's kind of billed to the parent cost center. But getting into the weeds, Embark's contract is projected to be about 4.9 million or just shy of that for next year. And that does include an increase of about 210,000 for fiscal year 27. Staff increases, similar to what we experience around here with step and merit and things like that, insurance. So with that, when we compare what we think the revenues and expenses are going to be for next year, we get to about $589,000 that we haven't budgeted. And I just want to put the caveat with that asterisk that if we did utilize it, which we'll talk about on the next slide, we wouldn't have any fund balance for Fund 27, which I think is worth noting. And that current surplus is about 9.3 of budgeted expenses. And I made sure to check with Kim and Clint, and we try to do a target of about 8% for our funds that aren't the general fund. So just something to keep in mind. I don't know that we've ever really talked about fund balance for Fund 27 since I've been here. So I think it's probably worth talking about. Things come up, things happen, and then unfortunately we have to go to council and ask to potentially borrow or use general fund money. And we, like I said, in the budget goals is try to avoid that.
I mean, as an example, this year we had the transit bus that was struck by another vehicle uninsured. And because we'd use FTA funds, the choices were either pay the FTA back for that or we buy a new one. Well, this is where that money would have come from. Instead, we had to come to council and ask for an appropriation to do that.
Yeah, there should be some kind of protection for that.
And we are, my understanding from
Federal
legal,
government's
seeking
way better something.
restitution, but who knows what happens with
What is
that.
that?
And
They didn't have insurance.
Yeah, $50 a month for 140 years.
Yeah.
correct, but those are just the things that happen. We mentioned the
Yeah.
tariff charges for the 3 big buses. That's something we're gonna have to deal with next year potentially, that we're not budgeted for, unfortunately. So here's a pretty big slide to digest, so we'll go through it, try to go through it quickly, but one by one of the things that aren't budgeted that we've talked about this fiscal year, potentially for next fiscal year. So obviously, Norman On Demand continuation. We've heard from our contractor that for a full 12 months of service, it'd be about $650,000, and that is with the assumption that the demand will stay at or maybe a little above of what we're currently at. So they are trying to keep it as low as possible. This fiscal year, the university contributed just over 131,000, as you can see there. And while we would have to contract the 650,000 at the onset of the year, as we go through and the university helps pay for it, we would see a cost of about 518,000 at the end of the day. So, and I should have put this number on this next slide, but just thinking, keep that $590,000 budget surplus just in the back of your mind as we go through these items.
The other this is in addition to the expenses you have listed.
Yes, correct. Because the microtransit Norman On Demand isn't in the budget, so that's why it's kind of off on the side with these other items. We've talked about Route 110. That's kind of the next goal in the Go Norman Transit Plan of adding that frequency. Got a cost estimate from Embark plus from fleet staff on maintenance and fuel, and that's where we got the about 335,000 to add that frequency. And that would take that out from an route from an hour-long frequency to a 30-minute frequency, similar to what we did for Lindsay West or Route 112, which is a great addition for the riders if you can ever increase frequency. This third bullet is a new one. So much like us, Oklahoma City and Embark OKC is filling budget crunches. So they're looking at ways to save costs. And it was been tossed around the last few weeks of possibly decreasing or discontinuing the Route 24 between Oklahoma City and Norman. So we wouldn't have a route between the two cities anymore. However, I'm being told that they think they figured out a way to fund it for another year. If we're able to assist them with funding in the upcoming year, they would love that. We used to split the cost when I was at OU. It used to be run actually half by OU and half by Embark. And when we started about a year in, I think the Embark OKC Grudge took it over completely. And since then, we've been not helping fund that. But all that to be said, that might be another budget consideration for FY '28 that we need to keep in mind if sales tax dollars continue to drop and we continue working with Embark on what that route looks like, right? So
Is, how is OKC Embark funded? By the city of OKC entirely and maybe fairs, but I doubt that.
So I have some representatives from Embark here. KB, who's the chief of bus operations, or assistant director now of operations, I'm sorry. He could probably help us answer that, but they get grants from FTA just like we do, and they get fair revenue, but I think they do get a general fund subsidy
From the city.
from the city that help fund it, yeah.
And the city of OKC is maybe pulling back a little bit or?
Yeah, we feeling the crunch from the sales revenue reduction, so, yes.
In Oklahoma City.
Yes, we are.
So it's interesting.
Oklahoma City is seeing a sales tax reduction too.
Oklahoma City is having difficulty with sales tax.
Yeah, it's a surprise. It's fascinating.
Thank you for that. Okay, Councilor Pinckney.
I was just gonna make the comment that hopefully the runway on that issue is only 2 or 3 years, because hopefully we have an RTA coming online in that time frame. Which when that does, I think we can phase that route out altogether.
And I should note that it was already cut in service last summer due to budget constraints on the Embark OKC side. So it went from about 75 people a day that ride it to about 50 people per day because of those cuts. And then to the point about RTA, if they get going, I think the current timeline is probably being generous 7 or 10 years. But the point is well taken. I think that route is a bridge until something more robust comes along. So
That's also the social security route?
that is not, social
It's
security routes is separate. So that's been something we've talked about and bounced around for a long time, is if we could incorporate it on there or not.
Yeah, if
We-
that one could stop there, that would.
And we might explore that more into the future. We've talked about that more. We don't want to bog down an express route too much, get people to and from OKC to Norman as fast as possible, but also if we could do
It
that,
has one stop on
we
it.
could also consider it only doing it a couple times a week, similar to
Yeah.
what we do with the social security route, but we've talked about that. Last fall, we tossed around maybe increasing security services at the transit center. Right now, they're provided 8 hours a day, Monday through Saturday. You can see there, this proposal of an additional 28,000 through Embark using their security contractor would expand it to the entire service span, so 15 hours a day, Monday through Friday, and then 8 hours on Saturday, so the entire time we operate.
And that would allow the bathroom to stay open.
Potentially, I think that's the caveat we give with leaving the bathrooms closed, is security's not on site, so
Right.
we could definitely consider that, I think,
Is the lobby still open when there's not security though? Just
Yes.
not the restroom?
just not the restroom.
Councilmember Bruce?
I was just thinking, I'm doing some math in my head, just cost associated with microtransit per ride. You have that roughly?
I wish I would have thought of it beforehand. I did the quick math a little bit before this meeting. I think it's approximately $22 a rider. So
Per ride, that's not,
per ride, rider,
ride.
yeah, per ride, yeah, because there could be multiple people on the vehicle, yeah.
Councilmember Grant?
I was curious, where did we start out with transit as far as like a budget and range or coverage?
So this was literally like, I think, a year-long conversation we had with council was brought up, and we kicked it around. Then we actually hired a consultant to think through, well, if we did microtransit, what's the best use of that service? So we landed on, after council study sessions and looking at the current service at the late night, trying to serve those late night workers, and on Sunday service, since we didn't have any Sunday service. And the zone we left up to the RFP proposers. So that's where we got the initial zone, and it's kind of been tweaked and expanded over time. but,
We had added a Noble Parkway last year area there.
and we've added, I think, a little bit in Southeast Norman. But initially, it was quite a bit of conversations with council to get to the point of when we needed out for an RFP.
I was just wondering about if we might need to walk back as many places as it goes, or bring down the budget a little bit on it. Just thinking about, yeah, that's 518,000, but you said the surplus was 5,809.
Yeah, 590.
Yeah, so, and then thinking about our other potential expenses, because I do think the transit center being open and having bathroom access is pretty important too. And I know I hear from downtown businesses in that area about the heartache they have when they have people who are not their customers using their bathroom. So just trying to find balance, given the money we have to work with. But I hate to walk back on demand, but I do know if we do the RTA, doesn't that expand again?
The
On demand?
microtransit?
Yeah, microtransit options and coverage.
So you might be thinking of the Central Oklahoma Long Range Transit Plan, which isn't
Okay.
necessarily just RTA, what we went through with ACOG last year. It does propose more microtransit zones in the metro plus expanding ours, but that wouldn't necessarily be funding from the RTA.
Okay.
It's just a thought, an idea.
Or maybe we find somebody else like OU, like, I don't know, more Norman, that might want to pay into it and expand coverage, because I don't know. Is there any part of where the expansion happened that is not getting the use we thought it would get?
So we could look at that. I think size of the zone matters a little bit, because if you're traveling from one end to the other, then it takes up that driver and that vehicle longer to get to and from. So we could definitely look at that. I think we could look at the hours. So we do 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. Monday through Wednesday, and then go to 3 p.m. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday with the partnership with OU for Safe Ride Services. And then on Sunday, we do 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. So we could look at shaving those hours down, and that's probably what will help. We could also just, there's some KPIs in our budget, in our performance report. If we cut hours of service, then those KPIs would potentially be affected negatively, so wait times would go up and things like that. So there's some triggers we could pull, but it will probably impact the service one way or another, which, to your point, if we need to save dollars, which
Well, and I was
What we
looking
do
at
is
Embark Well, and I was like, I don't know if we'll get the grant or not, but it's also like, oh, how would you pick that up, an extra 100,000?
Right.
If you're not getting any grant money, so.
Right.
And we are waiting on that Embark Well grant notification. We still are pretty confident. It seems like a great program that totally fits with the goals of that program. But I think you're asking the right questions. You know, where do we want to, how do we want to divide the pie to make it fit and leave something there to where we have availability in the next budget year to be able to do things that impact or benefit the program as a whole.
And this is one of the well program through TSET, the Tobacco Settlement Endowment Trust grant program. That's a good example of they'll fund 2 to 3 years of service, but then if we want to keep it, we have to foot the bill, right? So
So if we get this grant, we can expect to have this for the next 2 to 3 years.
yeah, we submitted for a 3-year project, $100,000 per year. So
Well, I hope we get it.
yeah,
It'd be a good addition to the
Yeah.
transit system.
Are you able to, can you tell us the cost of Embark Plus Zone 2?
I can't off the top of my head, but we can surely dig into that. We don't really have a ton, Larry, you and KB, you can correct me. I don't know that the demand in Zone 2 is a lot, but there certainly is a cost to it. I don't know if it's probably the amount of money that you're hoping it is.
It's not one I want to cut, it's just covering 200 square miles when we're only required to cover maybe
Correct.
the urban area plus, what is it again, a mile?
It's 3/4 of a mile as the crow flies around this fixed route.
So it would only have to cover it probably to 24th, maybe 36th Avenue, but we cover the entire city limits with it.
Right.
And there's people with this, mobility challenge, disabilities that live past the lake that use it probably, but having an idea what that does cost to provide it to the entire city limits, I think would be helpful. Maybe it's not very much. So. But if we're thinking about the entire transit budget and what everything costs, I think that would be helpful. Yeah. Okay.
How did
Yeah, Councilmember Bruce.
how did the cost saving relationship or the cost, the ratio split out between, how did that come out with OU and the city as far as the ratio? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, so the first year, and we're in year 3, the first year was really, I think, what the university could provide, which was about 120,000, I think, the first year. So last year, we looked at it from the ridership perspective, and it looked like OU ridership was, I think, 19-20%, and that's where the 131 came from. I'm pretty sure. Sorry, I'm getting my dates and everything mixed up with how many years we've done microtransit, but that's kind of where we've been tackling it, is how much OU ridership is there, and can the university contribute that much? And we track that because to get free Safe Ride rides, they have to register for the service with their OU email address, so we're very confident in what the OU ridership is specifically, so. And then I have just a final slide of, hey, we want to confirm those budget goals that I listed in that slide of trying to stick away from the general fund as much as possible, especially in years like next year where we know that there isn't really any general fund to be had for anyone. While it would be a target, do we want to really commit to a general Fund 27 reserve fund target? And then obviously what we've been talking about that last slide is some direction on best usage of that surplus, we'll call it, of 590,000 for next fiscal year. And is it what we talked about, microtransit, maybe a little less service? Is it saving it all in reserve fund? These are things that we.
On the revenues from the previous slide, it doesn't have the OU contribution on there.
That's because the expense isn't on there, so. And just to further complicate things, obviously we're in February, so fiscal year starts July 1. Whatever direction we get here today, we'll work quickly to try to work towards. The university obviously has a stake in this, and whatever direction we get, they'll have to pivot potentially. So we just wanted to come to you guys as soon as we could to get that direction after we work through the budget projections and see what you guys thought.
I know for me, I would probably hold off on the Main Street frequency increase. If we can get by another year with them funding the Route 24, that would be helpful. And then maybe think about a phased. Maybe next year it's 25,000 and then 50, and then we can get up to covering half of it or whatever we think our share would be, or how many people from Norman are using it, how many people from OKC, or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever's fair there.
We can definitely spend time talking through that next year.
Kind of get into it, and then I'd be supportive of the transit center security part. It's a low cost, and I think it would have a big benefit. And then the well, hopefully, ideally get that grant funded, but we are hearing from senior citizens, people over 50, apparently, in Norman's definition, that at the that the Embark well could potentially help address the transit.
And just because you brought that up, I do want to state that my understanding is the sidewalk repairs we did on the north side of Johnson/Wellness Way, depending on what you want to call it, have been completed. So the route from the existing bus stop to there is, they'll be able to take that, they'll be able to cross the street, come in on the north side of the building, and not have to go all the way around to the street, all the way back through the parking lot, to make it a much easier route. And my understanding is that work has been completed on the sidewalk. And while there are areas that I wish were in a little better shape, we got rid of the most significant problems. working with the hospital, but we did that as part of our sidewalk program to try to get better access to the well for our seniors from the existing bus stop and to the existing bus stop.
It's great. I'll have to check that out and let everybody know at the that that happened.
We're gonna reach out to them, and we also have our ADA citizens meeting coming up where Taylor will, or Jason, whoever's attending that one, will be able to share that information at that also. But exciting news, we're able to do something there, an incremental step to get us much closer and close the gaps.
And same, I agree with the comments from Councilmember Grant about the on-demand. There is a demand for it, it looks like, but it is very expensive. And we may need to look at how to cut that back a little bit to fit it into that surplus budget somehow. So we can keep it going, but maybe it's not as robust as we have it right now, unfortunately. But so that'd probably be my position on it. Any other, Councilmember Dixon?
Thank you, sir. I'd say on this list, I agree with Councilmember Grant, the transit center security services increase. And then I'd be willing to do the Norman Express. And then I'd like to put above that to the surplus. I mean, $21 a ride, that's extremely expensive on the on-demand. It's crazy expensive, and it competes against, local Norman residents who are Uber drivers, who actually do it cheaper. So that's where I would be. I'd like to fund the transit center security and the Norman Express. My thoughts.
I would just note that maybe part of the reason why the expense there is on the on-demand is ADA accessible vehicles, and Uber and Lyft don't. Typically, nobody that has that vehicle is doing Uber and Lyft. Yes. And so that was one of the motivations for why Councilmember Studley and Councilmember Lynn came up with this. Was we had ADA advocates saying we want to be able Embark Plus, you have to schedule a day in advance, and we want to be able to go where we want to go right now. And Uber and Lyft, the private sector is not answering that call. And so that's how we kind of came up with that. And maybe that's part of contribute because the vehicles are ADA accessible, but
and that's Taylor's quick back of the napkin math. Let me go back and confirm those numbers,
And do we have a number of
negatively per seat?
the ADA riders?
Yeah, that's in the
Did I miss
performance
that?
report.
Sorry, I skimmed over that. I'll find it.
No, it's okay. It's a quick grab. So, so far this fiscal year, we've had, and they have to specifically request the wheelchair accessible vehicle, or they can click a button that they always request one. But we've had 140 riders so far this fiscal year that have utilized the Wave vehicles.
Riders or rides?
Trips, but they usually, if they're in a mobility device, it'll take up the majority of the vehicle, right? So, but let me make sure I go back and really get that math right, so I'm not overestimating. But I will also say, I think it was very prudent of council to go through the process with a consultant for the microtransit and for us to go forward with the late night service and the Sunday service, really expanding that transit capacity and service span, because late night service on big buses, it's hard to get everywhere. And this, while it seems inefficient, a big bus would probably be more inefficient. So if we're going to provide late night service, this is probably the way to go, if that makes sense.
And we'd also talked about the potential for Embark Plus to evolve into a more on-demand with software upgrades or whatever, and that would be able to address the ADA issue that our kind of goal was.
Yep, and we've been, that's been one of the bullet points talking with Embark too, is eventually can we get to that goal of
Sort of.
possibly having a same day service.
Yeah.
So.
Councilmember Grant.
I was just curious, so what does it cost to extend the hours that we run the buses?
So like instead of 10 p.m. ending at 11 p.m.
Well, yeah, I was just thinking about those late night, workers that have whatever shift.
Well, if we did it till 1 a.m. every single night and then 3 on the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, it'd probably be more expensive than $600,000 because for 5 buses, each bus has a driver, and then the maintenance and fuel on that, it would add up pretty quickly. And for sure Sunday service, so it's one thing to expand service on the same day, but when you start adding service on Sundays, you're adding a whole another day, for lack of a better term. It's just a lot more complications.
So even
right
though
now-
it is expensive to do on demand, it's still a bit cheaper than trying to pick it up with regular service.
Right, I would argue that's probably the case, especially for late night service like that.
It's supposed to fill in gaps where the fixed route doesn't go or when it doesn't run.
Or it doesn't make sense, yeah.
But yeah, we do have to think about.
And then on the Sunday service thing, we currently get by with not providing fleet services over the weekend. That's only one day that we provide big bus service on Saturdays. If we start getting into Sunday, it's like, do we need to have weekend fleet service? Maybe, right? Just in case something comes on or happens, so.
Yeah. We do know that the general fund is probably not gonna have the ability to give anybody a subsidy, so
Correct.
that surplus that we show right there is gonna be what we have, and that would, like you said, not leave nothing left if we use it all, so. Further, Councilmember Gansby?
Just also says that's great that y'all were forward thinking enough to have a surplus there for situations like this. When it's a tighter year, we have something to fall back on that y'all help make sure was there.
So just to make sure I heard correctly, we for sure want to add the 28,000 for the Norman Transit Center security increases. For microtransit, it would be preferred that we cut that service if we could to save some dollars, but we want to go ahead and put that forth in the budget next year.
So plan for it, and maybe we'll have a big windfall over the next 4 or 5 months. Everything will be great, but Councilmember Bruce and then Peacock.
The idea of Embark Plus expanding that to capture that whatever happened with micro transit for those that need the additional assistance. I mean, I think it's a great idea. Personally, I think it's a great idea. Of the 650,000 that we pay for that service, does the rider pay anything?
They do $3 fare, so a trip.
So it's $1 per additional.
$1 per person. So
Rider.
Scott and I went somewhere together, it'd be $4.
So it's,
And that is credited on our monthly invoices, so we are seeing some savings from that. I think it's about 2,000 to 3,000 a month, if I was right, yeah, the last time I looked.
besides the scratching the need associated with people that need assistance in riding, what other need were we trying to scratch with microtransit?
The late night service worker, shelf stalkers, things like that, we may take them earlier in the day to their job, earlier in the afternoon, but because we ended at 10 p.m. with the regular service, we had no way to get them home, so they'd have to take an Uber or walk or bike or whatever. And that was the reasoning for the late night service. Plus the Sunday service was added because we just didn't have any Sunday service, so.
See, me, I'm just talking out loud, you know, no offense to anyone, but the WELL program pilot, if those funds were like, no, we're not gonna get this, well, that WELL program is far more important in my mind. So I think elderly, stuff of that nature, using the WELL program, am I correct? High demand for elderly using the WELL program. Is that correct?
Well, it could be correct. We haven't operated it before, so we're hearing that it would be in demand, but we can't tell you the exact number, right, obviously. And Embark has done, this was last fall, did some number crunching, but we would pilot this program if we got the funding on hey, we can do this much, and then we'd see what demand we would get, really, so. But they've had a pretty good track record, and every year they've done it in Oklahoma City, it's gone up in demand, and I think it's very popular, so.
Well, I can see why it would be probably pretty popular. I really can, but
Yeah.
you know, is it an absolute need compared to, you know, a want? I can understand it would be an absolute need for those people that can't afford to wait a day. The Embark Plus, I can't afford to wait a day. You know, I'm unable to drive because of my physical handicaps or my inability. I can understand that.
in Embark Well, we've talked about last fall that it would serve people that couldn't utilize Embark Plus because you have to be go through the criteria and be approved for it. But if you are on Embark Plus, you could also be approved for Embark Well, and that might help Embark Plus free up some capacity. So it could be a really good program. It's just, it always comes down to dollars and cents for anything that we operate in the city. And unfortunately, that's where we're at. It's a crunch year.
What is the Kiwanis Cruiser? I mean, what is the service they provide, just for a refresher on that, because we do contribute funding to it, so.
So the Kiwanis Cruiser, it gets funding through the Aging Services funding.
Yeah.
And I think Embark and for Oklahoma County actually receives that funding, provides services through it. But for Cleveland County, that's where they get it through the Kiwanis Cruiser. And it is pretty general. I think it just provides rides to elderly folks in our community, if I'm right.
So-
KB, Jason, it's been a while since I've looked into it, but I'm pretty sure it's just generally elderly
Well, it kind of got me
services.
thinking about is there similarity in the Embark Well and the Kiwanis Cruiser?
Potentially, but Embark Well would be very targeted, so that way we're trying to meet some goals like wellness for seniors.
I would also think that,
Councilor
Yeah,
Bukakis,
sorry.
and then we'll get,
yeah,
I was just curious if is the micro transit program still viable if we just reduce it down to kind of its core functions of ADA and late night access? Like, do we still have a program at that point, or does the cost to operate become? I'm sure there's an economy of scale here, and so if we just do ADA rides and late night rides, do we lose out on that economy of scale, and does it become so expensive at that point that it's not viable?
Well, I don't know if that's what we were proposing, but that's good clarification. I think we were just talking about how we could decrease it in general, so hours wise or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, I think if we're just providing, and it depends on what you call late night. So instead of starting at 7 p.m., do we start just at 8 or 9? How much money does that save? But I think if we just provide ADA rides and safe ride rides, that might not accomplish what we want to accomplish. So we'll definitely go back if that's council's direction, is to keep doing micro transit and try to cut the budget. But we really need to plan for that today because again, partners at OU, they need to pivot if we're not going to do it at all, potentially. And then we need to make sure we get all our ducks in a row contracting wise with OU and with the operator if that's something we're going to continue to do. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
it does.
I think I took the direct direction to go back to the operator and to OU and say, okay, what can we decrease and how much will that save us?
That's really where I'm at. I'm supportive of the program, but if we could make it more efficient and streamline it any way possible to save some money, then yeah.
I have heard from the operator, so if we start cutting days, so Monday and Tuesday aren't well ridden, then we start getting into, well, transit riders really depend on consistency. So maybe they don't ride every Monday, but if they know it operates Monday through Saturday at 7 p.m. to 1 a.m., for example, it's probably more user-friendly because, and the great thing about Norman On Demand is because it's on demand, they can only run 1 or 2 vehicles a night, but on the busy nights, they can run 3, 4, 5, right? So we'll go back to the contractor, see how much we can potentially decrease to keep the program running. But as it stands on here, just the quick math, again, we'd have to fund the whole thing, but at the end of the year, we'd have about 70,000 left over with the surplus that's projected. If you add the transit center security services, about 28,000, we get down to about a 40,000 surplus. So it's like last year where we had we were very close dollars and cents on the transit budget. And again, because things came up like the vehicle, we had to request general fund. And depending on how things go next year, we'd have to potentially put off buying that bus, right? And ask FTA to give us a leniency to wait until next fiscal year to buy it potentially, right? There's just things that come up. The Gillig big bus purchase that we might need additional funding for, we're gonna have to find that funding of about 5% if it comes to fruition, so.
Well, and it's not mandated that the public transit fund be self-sustaining. That's just been our goal.
Correct.
And many other funds in the city are subsidized by the general fund in some sense, the PSST and others. And before the transit tax, the city's general fund was contributing $500,000 to $700,000 a year to transit,
To OU, yeah.
to that. So that's helped relieve the general fund somewhat of that, so. But yeah, preference of trying to make it self-sustaining, I think that helps make the case to the general public for why it's worth it. It's self,
And
doesn't require.
we're very fortunate to have the transit sales tax.
Yeah.
So I'll just
I brag
leave it
about
at
it every time I talk to other cities. Councilmember Bruce.
Just a one more point, so on demand, besides the population that call upon it for, because they have a physical limitation handicap, why would I call it, if I was out there at 1 o'clock in the morning, why would I call it instead of Uber? Why would I call it instead of Uber? Or if I need a ride, why would I call on demand versus?
Well, the cost is probably gonna be cheaper because it's $3 per ride. Might be more readily available because it is Norman focused and we have dedicated vehicles out there. Where Uber is, if you're an Uber driver, it just depends on if you want to work or Lyft or whatever. So it can be a safety net if there aren't any other services available, especially because buses aren't running and yeah, the private sector might not be there to provide that service. And that's really the crux of the Safe Ride program is sometimes there's not a service available, especially 30 years ago when they started it, or most universities started it. And then the goal of getting university students home, no questions asked, is a big deal for the university. So that's kind of the safety net part, and we can kind of extend that to our general population too. If they need a ride home, hopefully we can get them home without them having an issue.
So are you saying, so you're saying Ubers aren't available at certain times in Norman?
I haven't run the data, but they could be, is what I'm saying, because they are based on if you want to work as an Uber driver, right? That's
There might
my
be-
understanding.
Or there might be two of them working.
Yeah.
If there's a big event in the city or something.
Or they
Say,
might,
if
yeah,
there's
they might go up to Oklahoma City
The
to work
hot spot
instead.
for
So.
pay could be Oklahoma City, and that makes all our drivers rush up there.
I've
to
heard
take
stories of people
Yes.
saying it can be difficult to get a Lyft or an Uber in Norman just because there's not a lot of availability.
Or it's an
I-
hour to get one.
Yeah,
That's,
I
20
haven't,
minutes.
Maybe we explore the share relationship changes as far as cost per ride out of my pocket if I'm asking for a ride for, instead of being subsidized so much.
I'm sorry, can you say it again?
increase the fare.
Oh, okay. I was thinking about something else and kind of half heard you. Okay. Yeah, when that's what we did this past fall, we increased it from 2 to 3. We can definitely, if that's council's direction, we could consider increasing it again. So, or we've talked about changing the model for fare. It's just a straight up cost. Maybe it's per distance, but our zone is kind of tight compared to other cities. So the distance model doesn't necessarily fit. It gets confusing. So we could certainly look at that again.
Any other feedback, comments about transit budget? Any further meetings about it, and we'll be discussing it here every month too, as I'm sure, as we lead up to the June budget adoption. Okay, all right. Thank you, Taylor and Scott. We'll move on to item number 3, which is downtown parking discussion. Just continues to be a point of discussion, ever evolving. We have business owners asking us about timed parking, county commissioners asking about the paid parking around the courthouse. And so, and then we, recently created the parking and transit trusts, and so, thought we'd have a discussion about parking downtown, just in general.
You don't get to get rid of us. We're gonna stay for this.
Good.
So,
We have a very quick slide presentation for you all, just giving a general overview, and then we can have some discussion. But you may be familiar with some of these. We just came to you in November and then on December 9th to pass a new parking management plan. So kind of going over some of those general overviews again. Transit and parking within Public Works kind of leads the coordination at the city. We took over, after transit got settled, we added parking to the transit function a few years in, so about year 2 or 3. And we've slowly been trying to move operations over here. We really take care of the paid public parking, and then obviously that touches the timed, and then parking enforcement with PD. Traffic control is more of that timed parking plus the signage. In city clerk's office, they historically handled the permits for the Gray Street lot, and we've taken that over this current year. Still work closely with them on things, and then municipal court obviously for any violations. So again, that parking management plan adopted by council on December 9th. We used to have 2 separate ones, one for downtown, one for Campus Corner. majority of it was just the same verbiage, so we just compiled it and made sure that the separate areas, like the rates and things, were separated, so we didn't have two documents to keep up with. Updated general information, updated payment options, just general revisions, but the big to-do was updating those rates, and I didn't include it in this presentation, but we went from 25 cents an hour in like the Gray Street lot and the county courthouse area to 50 cents an hour. And then in our ASP lot, which is just north of Campus Corner, we went from $1 an hour down to 50 cents to hopefully encourage folks to utilize that lot more, especially because the on-street parking in Campus Corner, we kept it $1, so that hopefully incentivizes people to utilize that lot more.
So 50 cents, right?
Down from $1 to 50 cents.
So
Yep.
50 cents if you'll just walk one block.
Correct. So it makes sense. Hopefully we'll see that. We also increased we'll get into the rates here in a minute for downtown, but we increased the rates for the Gray Street lot permits, and then also are looking at ASP lot permits starting July 1, so giving us some time to set that up, but that's what we're working towards now. So here's the rates for downtown, since that's specifically what we're talking about here. There's a lot of information on this slide, but it generally talks about what I just went over. Gray Street lot and courthouse on-street parking is 50 cents an hour, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. We also have leases, 41 spaces in the Gray Street lot for $600 for the annual permit, and that's up from $450 for the annual permit. I don't remember the last time it was updated, but it's been that much for a while. And then some just general information there at the bottom of how many spaces are in each of those areas. This map is a little busy, but given the general discussion of downtown parking, I went in and just wanted to show an overview of the timed and paid parking in downtown. This isn't, I might have missed an area here or there. I might have gotten one little bit wrong, but it gives you an idea. So working up to the paid parking, we have no time limits in some areas in purple. You can see some of those in the middle and on the outskirts. Some 15 to 30-minute parking. There's not very many of it in that blue. There's a loading zone just on Crawford, just south of Main, and then there's some right in front of the Norman Transcript, so not much. The majority is an hour parking with the yellow, hour and a half parking with the orange. There's a little bit there on the west side of the tracks on Main Street, and then 2-hour parking in the red. And then the green is the Gray Street lot, paid parking lot, and then around the courthouse is the other paid parking in downtown.
So the parking lot across Jones from the Sooner Theater, the city, we own that? That one.
Yes, I didn't include that because it's kind of, it's free. That's what I'm not saying this is a perfect map,
Sure.
but that is available also.
I just wasn't sure if there was some weird thing about it.
No,
Why it's there.
I just, I need to formalize this map in our GIS system. We just don't have the staff time to really go in and make a formal map, but.
The intent here is just to concentrate on the on-street parking and the paid parking that we manage. There's lots of, off-street parking that obviously is not accounted for in this map in any way because it's private. That's a city lot, but it doesn't really fit the categories of what we thought we really wanted to be talking about today.
But it's a free
Yes.
lot that has no
Yeah.
time limit.
I also didn't include any lots around the city complex, that could be used after hours. There's little tidbits like that.
And then East Main, east of Porter, like the Stash and
Oh, yeah.
Fire Station 1, there's no time limit down there, I don't think.
I don't believe so. So, again, just a general overview, kind of giving an idea of how it looks today. So,
Fascinating how one single block on Main is an hour and a half.
And we didn't realize that. When he came with that, I did the same thing. Went, what? Why is that one block? We have no reasoning for it. It just is. So.
and ideally, you would have the shorter timelines, obviously, in the more popular areas, and then it kind of works that way here. But as you work out, it gets higher timelines or even no time periods, right?
So further you're willing to walk.
Right.
Councilmember Grant and then Beacon.
So those red, is that Santa Fe where it's got like no time? Yeah, that's like the Maker Lab. and the other one's scratched.
Yeah,
So I-
correct,
I
yeah.
assume that is their most recent change to the 2 hour.
I
That
don't,
was
That,
blue.
we haven't changed anything recently in downtown.
Oh, okay, I got a request for that and forwarded it on, so I was just curious.
It's 1 hour on the north side of
Right.
them.
That's the one they wanna change, okay.
Correct.
And wasn't it blue? Did we change it for blue on Crawford?
Yes,
To
that
2
was a
hours.
change that was made a little ways back, yeah, about 6 months ago, something like
Yeah.
that.
correct, oh, yeah.
And with
I'm
that,
sorry.
that's when
Yeah,
we
for blue.
estab-
I thought you were talking about the color blue.
That's when we,
Yeah,
esta-
the
to,
rest
to
of it.
do that, we established the policy we have in place now that to change the timing limits, you need to get 75% of the property owners or tenants, depending how you look at it, on that block to agree. Because while 2 hours may be great for one person, 2 hours may be horrible for somebody else. They want people popping in and out, and somebody else needs 2 hours because they've got, patrons that are there for 2 hours. So we want to make sure that we don't make it, that have the change immediately get pushed back from 2/3 of the block that say that's a real problem for us. So we want to make sure that it's majority, so it's 75% of that block.
Is that what else, now I'm thinking about the coffee spaces and I
Yep.
see them, so Gray Owl, that was another
That was
request,
one.
was 2 hours.
Last couple of years, yep.
The people around them said yes, and then I remember Yellow Dog asked. And I think that's still great that there is no time limit over by Highlands, since it's where their employees are parking. So, I know they gotta probably fight to get in there, but, and I would say, is, parking enforcement, like, really just going through and on these 2 hour ones, like, keeping the time, or?
It's a very labor intensive job and and they're still under PD, so I should have asked them to be here to help us answer some questions, but
Yeah, still chalk tires
They
and
still
come
chalk
back in 2
tires,
hours
yeah.
and look for chalk.
Yeah.
Cause I know they get called out to press and plow off of Lindsay and is it Lahoma? I wanna say, because of the parking over there, so, they've got a range they've gotta cover.
yeah, and I think this is an important note is parking enforcement doesn't just handle the paid or time parking in town, they also handle every area of town that they can go to without having a police officer take care of it, right? So
Yeah, and then I know people were surprised to hear that, we don't really make money off of parking enforcement, so they're just convinced people are paying their tickets, I guess.
well, and even the ones that are paying the tickets, yeah, we're still not able to recoup the complete cost of parking enforcement, which
Councilmember, Peacock, did you have a question?
I did, it wasn't a question, just a comment. I actually have to leave in about 2 minutes, so I wanted to get this in there. I'd be in favor of making it all 1.5 hour, maybe even potentially 2 hours. I get the idea of incentivizing turnover. I mean, I get that, but I also think this is our central business district, our, the most heavily trafficked, foot trafficked area of the whole city, and we want people to linger a little bit. You want to be able to park and go to your first destination, finish up, and go to a second or a third potentially, all without having to move your car. You want to be able to walk to those places, and so I personally would be in favor of extending it across the district. Now, if there's a street, like you said, that's got 75% of the businesses that want less time, maybe we start at 2 hours and then people can reduce from there, but I would just be,
We could do that with council direction.
I'd be in favor of that, so I just want to put that out there.
Councilmember No Fire.
I was actually gonna bring up something very similar to Councilmember Peacock, simply because if we did it in that nature, right now it's kind of confusing with where the time limits or whatever, and you always have to look at the signs to see how long you can stay there, and that would simplify it for everybody and probably result in fewer parking tickets in the first place, if it's all, just say 1.5 hours everywhere down.
For the 15 to 30 minute parking, I would definitely ask them before just blanket covering.
I would call those a special zone, though. That's there for a reason.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we would do those particularly, especially because like the one is a loading and unloading zone. That's a special zone, has a special purpose.
Yeah, I see a few of them, cause is that Crawford or
Ones in
whatever?
front of
Yeah, that's the loading and unloading. And then you've got the parking spaces right in front of the transcript, which was there for people to run in and run out and take care of business.
Just real quick, I do have a procedure question. Does this have to go to planning commission and all that for approval?
This is just council.
So there's no notification, that's kind of what I was getting at, is there gonna be a
Might wanna
notification to
notify the
businesses? Yeah,
businesses.
that's what I was.
I was gonna say, it might be worth just making sure that that's desired, cause it could be a case that they want the hour parking.
For sure.
Especially in the more heavily trafficked.
I think of a
areas, so.
notification, even though it's probably not required, is be a smart thing just to test the waters.
Yeah, and also just put it in there,
There's
cause
a bunch of pushback.
parking is one of those animals. So like if you got Tatsumaki ramen, you know, maybe 1 hour makes sense for the turnover. And I know that those people are going, even though there's no time limit on the other sides, but it's all full. They're going into Mango's parking, which is for their customers only. So, and that's caused some friction there. So I don't know if there's a perfect answer, but definitely.
I guarantee you, whatever we choose to do, whatever council would give us direction to do, somebody's not gonna like it.
Yeah.
But what we need to do is just make those decisions. Would council want us to move forward on those areas that currently have no time parking and make that 2 hour also, or leave those as is? And part of the reason I ask that question is because especially there along Jones where there's currently parking, that is kind of designated parking for people that are utilizing Amtrak. And so if you do that, you kind of start creating a weird issue there.
Until the parking structure becomes available.
Until there's another option. So I would recommend maybe leaving that stretch for people who are going to the well, because the well might need longer time frames. We'd hate to have somebody who's doing something at the well that's a great accommodation for our Norman and our county residents to have to go out there and move their car in the middle of an event that they're at. So if we could entertain that idea, maybe leaving that area and maybe some of those other areas are really like 4 parallel parking spaces. They're pretty much full all the time. But
I would prefer to make it consistent on Main Street. I kind of favor the 2 hour, just.
2 hours.
And maybe, I mean, ideally, if the Downtowners Association would maybe give us a recommendation of what they prefer, that would be helpful. I know they don't speak for every business and property owner, but it would give us a pretty good idea, I think. And then, so I'd say Main and Gray Street be consistent, 2 hour. I would keep the no time limit parking for now, maybe where it's at. But Main and Gray and Comanche kind of have it uniformed with the 2 hour parking. Eufaula is almost entirely 2 hour except for that strip in front of the dairy, and I'd be fine keeping that the way it is. And then the other issue is the courthouse. So Commissioner Hughes is here. Requested just a discussion about that situation. It's the only street parking that we charge for downtown. And the discussion about people paying in the courthouse versus if there's a time limit, they may have to move their car while they're in the middle of court, I don't know. But that was part of the motivation of the discussion too, is that it's clearly we have a hodgepodge of how parking is done in downtown Norman, so a little bit more uniformity I think would be helpful. And then I know there's plans to, close Comanche, that block of it in front of the court or next to the courthouse. And then future plans with parking structures and potentially paid parking, street parking in the future. So I wanted to mention that too. Councilmember Grant.
Yeah, I was thinking about the future closure on Comanche. I'm okay with it paid just for the fact that you could be guaranteed, and I assume those you could be in the court and add the time through your phone. And I do like the purple where the well and that strip is, because somebody from the courthouse could park over there and walk over too. But in the future, I guess Comanche is gonna be offline, but maybe by that point, we have a parking structure and the whole downtown is paid parking. So I'm kind of leaning towards keeping the purple and the green where it is.
Councilmember Dixon.
I was gonna see if we could recognize
Yes.
Commissioner McHughes to kind of talk about what the county's thinking.
Yeah, if you'd like to.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So just an update, we're working pretty diligently on the parking garage across Comanche. So I think there's a lot of contract, but we are very close to getting that deal done. I feel like within about 18 months, we'll have a parking structure there. So we're cooking with gas. We did put in a request with the city manager on obviously closing Comanche. we feel like that'll be like a beautiful courtyard for the courthouse. One other thing that I brought to the attention of some of the council members and mayor, as you guys know, it's mayhem when you're trying to come in and pay property taxes inside the courthouse. We feel like, I view it a lot like I do the state capitol. It's a public building. We need to be able to service the taxpayers who are coming and paying for core services of government. You know, and I'd leave that up to the council as what that looks like. But really, you know, we could do, the immediate parking around Jones, Peters, and Eufaula. I'd really highlight that to the members and just say, look, it's probably not 15, 20 spaces, but it would be nice to have that for some veteran parking, some additional veteran parking. Also specific to the county offices. And whatever you guys think that needs to look like, if that's a 2-hour parking, that's great. But I think the residents and your constituents would really appreciate that. It is a zoo when, whenever they're trying to process property taxes, it's crazy in there. Jury trials are also insane. So I think with the parking garage, we're working on our side, but I'd made a couple of requests with the mayor on that. I feel like that's a good aspect out for the public, not having to meter and get into the building. So thank you.
So just to be clear, the preference of the county would be timed parking around the courthouse instead of paid?
I'd leave that up to the pleasure of the board, but anything where they don't have to go necessarily, a 2-hour would be good, Mayor. I mean, if I had my wish list, we'd just put signage out there and designate it for that office for probably 2 hours per each office. But I would leave that up to the pleasure of the board, whatever they want to do. But I just want to expand opportunity for people to have access to a public building without having to pay a meter. That's really where I'm at, so.
I do have a question.
Yeah, Councilmember Grant.
Is there a problem with them parking over by the purple across the way? I know the train tracks kind of bisects it.
Yeah, it's really from a legal standpoint, we don't even like sending our own employees over there to cross the train track. They can, but really, like right now, north of the empty lot that we have north of Comanche, we just let the general public park in there right now, and they're already doing that. So I'm about, like I said, public building, I hate charging people for, if they're coming in to pay property taxes, it in turn goes to education and roads and bridges. Like, we need to look at it at that angle is what I would argue to you guys. And I appreciate the board, Councilman and Dixon and the mayor were very, that was well received when I brought that to y'all's attention. I just feel like I said, it's something that when you see people plugging the meter and fighting to get inside the courthouse, it's just tough for me to see that, so.
And I would say our long-range plan is to meter all of downtown. So just putting it out there, that
Sure.
was the plan.
Yeah, the recognition that when
Thank you, Commissioner.
the Gray and Peters parking structure goes up, that in the combination of parking time limits and or rates to park in the structure versus park on the street, like the recent changes on Campus Corner, cheaper to park in the lot, cheaper to park in the structure than it would be to park on the street, but yeah, I mean, different time limitations. So if you're gonna be there a long time, you wanna save some money, park in the structure, cost you less. If you're, gonna be doing your downtown business, there's a 2-hour limit, park on the street, $2, do all your shopping and call it a day.
Free parking is a way for cities to incentivize economic activity, though. People really love when you go visit an out-of-town place and you don't have to worry about, am I parked in the right place? I'm gonna get towed. I'm in this town I've never been in before. And you can just go shop or eat or whatever you wanna do. So there's something to be said about that. It feels good to be able to just go downtown and park and not have to worry about messing with all that. Councilwoman Fulton.
I just kind of wanted to piggyback off what the commissioner said. Just me personally, it is tough parking around the courthouse. And I've only been to, honestly, the Cleveland County Courthouse when I was adopting children. So if you're ever there on a day where it's a day for adoption, it's a crazy house. And there's no parking because everybody obviously brings their whole family because everybody wants to see that happen. It's a big deal. And so that is a crazy day at the courthouse and there's nowhere to park. And my daughter got towed. So yeah. I just would like to see something different around the courthouse also.
I just want, oh, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to say, the goal, at least in my mind, I know it could vary from city to city, the goal of metering and parking enforcement is compliance and then also economic development, that turnover we talk about. So, obviously, we want to think about the free times versus metering, but if it makes more sense to be free, that makes sense. But I just want to, the parking enforcement folks, I know they have a very labor intensive job and they work hard, and
Be good for it
they
to be
try to-
consistent, I think, for them.
right, but
Every block's the same.
I think their goal would be not to have to issue any tickets or anything, and I just want to be cognizant of that they're out there, we're trying to incentivize the turnover so that businesses would get more businesses, right?
So in the grand scheme, the opportunity for a different funding model, basically pay for parking to be able to provide more parking and add parking capacity, which is what we hear that there is development sitting on the sidelines waiting for a parking solution in downtown. There is development pressure on the sidelines on Campus Corner waiting for a parking solution.
All those parking lots, just insane.
And yeah, I mean, if in the opportunity to say, hey, church, we know Sunday morning's the big busy time for you. Could there be public parking when church isn't happening? Can you more fully utilize maybe contractually some of the open parking lots all the way around? Potentially, yes. The concept of could you develop parking structures to really get that parking density up with TIF revenue for that East Main TIF program? Could you take a bigger chunk of that revenue and pay for parking structures and provide that free parking for everybody downtown? Potentially, the same on ASP. And that's a model we don't see in our neighboring agencies. Oklahoma City, you pay to park everywhere, and they use the money to pay for parking structures. They don't have a TIF set up to do that, but potentially council could.
The East Downtown folks, around the 400 block of Main, that's our parking, and they definitely want us to fix it up. So
Oh, yeah.
that TIF will definitely be addressing
Whole streets.
those folks' interests. So
So I'd say all of the yellow, make it red.
We'll just go to 2 hour, basically.
Yeah, and like with the standard, it's no time limit, but the standard's the only business that faces Gray Street on that side of the street on that whole block. So,
I don't think they would hate more turnover, to be honest.
so if
2 hour them too.
And I put in what was
that
there
would be
prior
consistent.
to the Gray Street construction, and we've been
Yeah.
talking internally about that being updated with the Gray
then
Street
we've
coming back online.
added some new street parking on Grady since then too, or part of it. So yeah, if there's any other thoughts on any of that?
And good news, we have our own sign shop, and if we make such a change and it blows up, we can
Change
change
it
it.
back. I think it's pretty, yeah.
Should we make those signs in-house?
Oh, those we don't.
I think we may purchase those. I'm not positive. I can't,
not very expensive,
I can't respond to that directly,
still
but
change
I'd hate to, 50-50, it's one or the other.
Yeah, it's not cost prohibitive.
I promise you,
to do this,
it's one or
so.
the other.
Any other thoughts on downtown parking? Okay.
So just a little clarification, so it's not all red, or it's gonna be all red?
Yellow being all red.
Anything
Okay, yeah.
that's not currently purple, go to red.
And with the courthouse, I mean, I don't have a problem with the 2 hour thing.
Me either.
So red around the courthouse too.
Okay. And
Councilman,
Like a budget.
yeah, what is it? What are we collecting off that? I doubt it's enough to cover it.
It's not much.
Okay, here we go.
So this is our last slide here, but basically based on the rate change, and I know we're running short on time with the last item, but the Gray Street lot, we're thinking we'd get about $15,000 with the 50 cents up from 25 cents. And then the courthouse on street, we would go up to about 23,000 with the rate increase. And then that paragraph below is talking about the Gray Street lot permit rate increase, and that we have all but 3 spaces that were accounted for this year. And thankfully, nobody complained about the rate increase. So we are doing well with that and increase the revenue from that lot. But obviously, if we take away the meters around the courthouse, that revenue would not be there anymore. And then I did want to say for the Gray Street parking lot, as we start affecting time parking on Main Street and Gray Street, that could affect people wanting to park in the Gray Street lot because of the incentivizing to be able to park longer and not have to worry about enforcement or anything. So just as a caveat, that could affect the revenue on the Gray Street lot.
Are these numbers factoring into that surplus that we talked about in the previous item?
Now, the previous time was all transit only.
Okay.
This is parking only. We really look at them, even though they're kind of combined, we look at them as two separate funds.
Systems.
Yeah.
So, sorry, Dan.
Yes.
That 13.8, that's what we're collecting now roughly.
Roughly,
At
yeah,
the
if we kept it
25.
at 25 cents.
So if
But-
we
but-
decide not to collect it anymore, we'll be losing 13.
We'll be losing
A
the,
potential increase.
well, we already have the increase in
Okay.
place.
Started.
So the potential increase, we're saying that with the potential increase included, it's 19 for this year. And 27, because we have the whole year of collecting at 50 cents, it would be 23. So it'd be losing $23,000 of revenue. We gain $23,000 in revenue. It would be a wash. But this fund is grossly under budgeted anyways, so.
And this doesn't include the expense of having those meters, like the fees we pay to Flowbird and things like that.
Right. What was the, okay.
And there's an economy of scale, volume wise, we're not there yet. I don't know if Oklahoma City's there yet in terms of the number of pieces of hardware they have to collect parking revenue from all their paid parking systems.
We could get some pushback, but some agencies have started going to more asset light. So they put up the sign with the QR code and say pay to park, use the QR code
Instead of a machine.
instead of a machine. But you could get pushback from those that don't want to use their phone
Or
or
it's dead.
so just something to consider for future areas, either areas that are on the periphery or new areas people are considering using just QR code and signage, even for street parking.
Yeah, technology will continue to evolve to make it better, faster, cheaper to enforce whatever rules established by the council, so.
Well, maybe we could do something to figure out the cost of that equipment that we put in.
And the parking meter was invented in?
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma City, I don't know the year, I don't remember the
We
year.
see, on the cutting edge of this stuff right here.
Okay.
And the shopping.
If we do it, I'll let the county tell us we never did anything for them.
Thank you for that, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Dixon.
Just real quick, I'd like to continue the county, kind of conversation around there. I mean, we provide free parking spots here at our lots.
Yeah.
I always get confused if I'm supposed to park there or in the employee parking lot when I come up here. You know, the only reason people are doing that is to do governmental business. So I'd like to continue that conversation.
Yeah, and the post office. So that strip that's in front, which
Has no time.
isn't being redone as part of the Gray
Gray
Street
Street lot?
project either, which is
Because it's out of
another
the right of
interesting
way.
thing to me.
Right away.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is weird, but it's not timed. It's not even
It's private parking.
public. It's private.
Yeah.
But nobody would know that. It doesn't say that.
Oh, yeah, they would just assume it's the same as all the rest.
Okay.
So you don't really get to say what the time limit is in a private lot.
No.
And even to your point about the mango and like even if we change the times, that might not affect, that's gonna be the property owner's responsibility to enforce their lot. If
Yeah.
that makes sense. In the
That
post
means
office
tow.
too, if they needed to, so.
Okay.
So we want to proceed with
Yellow or red?
removing the parking around the courthouse and make it 2 hour like the rest of the area? Or is that further discussion point?
Maybe further discussion point, because we were talking about, what were you saying, the equipment cost was the same as what we'll get in fiscal year 27? Or did I misunderstand?
Yeah, just based on the new rates for one full fiscal year. If we didn't collect around the courthouse but have the new rates in place for a whole year, we break even. We're right exactly where we are today.
Yeah, with the increase at the
Yep.
Gray lot.
We'll lose 23 around the courthouse, pick up 23 at the Gray Street lot. No change.
Okay. Yeah,
Yellow to red.
Okay.
yeah.
Green to red?
Yeah.
Gonna go from grow to
That
stop.
one's green to red.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, final, anything comments about that part, downtown? Okay. All right, then this last item on the agenda.
Great, thanks for the support.
Thank you, staff. That'll be a continued discussion, downtown parking as always. Project updates and discussion of the Access Oklahoma East-West Corridor. This is our fourth
This should-
item.
This should be pretty short. There's not a whole lot of real dramatic changes since the last time we spoke. We want to keep you informed and keep transparency with you. As we've talked about before, they awarded the contract on the bridge over the Canadian River. They will be mobilizing early March. I've heard anywhere from the first to the second week. So they will be under construction. We'll be seeing equipment moving in. They may not be doing a lot of hard at the very beginning, but they'll be setting up and getting out there and getting that going. We have talked about the fact that there's the 36th Avenue Northwest Phase 2, that part of the drainage that we would have to have constructed with ours is also necessary for the turnpike to be able to operate properly. So they have reached out to us and said, let's work together on this. And as a part of that, what the latest discussions were is that they would basically come in and build all of what we were calling Phase 2, which is just a little bit north of Franklin Road to Indian Hills, because basically that entire structure will be underneath the roadway. It was with our design too. So they would construct that as part of their projects. It will save the city of Norman on the magnitude of $3.5 to $4 million. We're still, the numbers kind of, it's all estimates right now. And that they would do that and that we would participate with about $2.2 million with some in-kind services that we've already completed that we had to do for our project. We'll be bringing that agreement to council for discussion and for further consideration, hopefully on the 10th. We haven't gotten back. It is an agreement, not a resolution. So it will be, the city does this, they agree to do this, signed and sealed, and that's the agreement that we all operate under to move forward. Just to kind of let you know what their schedule looks like. Letting means bidding. It's the same word, just a different term. So right now they're looking at August 2026 that they would be bidding the interchange at 60th Avenue Northwest. So that's coming up pretty quick. These dates are kind of fluent, so if you see them change, don't shoot the messenger. It's just they're moving things back and forth as they need to try to accommodate the work on 36. They moved back the bid date for the section from 48th to 36th to September. That would be under construction probably right around the first of the year, just before the first of the year. Also, they are talking about the bridge and approaches over 48th Avenue. So the bridge at 48th Avenue Northwest would be under construction. October, they're coming back. They're bidding the grading and the drainage and then bidding the paving separately. That's just the way they're setting up their contracts. There's got to be an economy. There's a reason they do that. But they're looking at talking about bidding that in October. That one may slide based on the movement of the previous contract. 36th Avenue Northwest would be November 2026. If you're looking at their bid letting schedule from their last authority meeting, it said northeast. I called and went, is that supposed to be northwest? And I'm like, yeah, that's northwest. So good news there. And then January 2027, they're going to start bidding the section from 36th Avenue across I-35 to the railroad. So you're going to start seeing construction in that area quickly. Looking further out, they're looking at the Porter bridge structure for this in the first part of 27, the first half of 27, with lots more bids coming up. So lots of activity coming. It's going to look like a definite construction zone across North Norman for quite a long time. They're still saying that there will be traffic moving east-west from I-44 to I-35 by the end of 27. So I also had a request about what's going on Highway 9. So we reached out to our partners. I had my meeting with Ron Brown with ODOT. That project did begin back in September 24. It has been a pretty long project, but it was a 420-day construction project. So it's right on par with that. It's basically substantially complete at this point. They're going to be probably starting to remove barrels, get striping done, and that's gonna be just ready to go, and we're not gonna know it, we're not gonna remember what was there before, pretty soon. So that's really good news on that one. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions about any other project, these projects, or anything else that's out there.
1 second, go back to the Highway 9.
No, you missed it, no.
It looks like they did that section to accommodate the future 6-lane of
Correct.
Correct.
Highway 9 from I-35 to East 24th, which has been in their 10-year plan for like the last 15 years, but, or 8-year plan. So I don't know when they ever expect to actually.
Well,
do the whole
they're
thing.
currently doing a study, having a study completed that is looking at that whole section and what would be the best service for the community and for the highway system. And that is currently ongoing, and we're expecting to get them to come back and talk to us anytime now. We had a meeting set up several months ago, and they went, "No, we're making some tweaks." And so we're waiting for them to come back. But I'm expecting it not just to be a 6-lane, to be more like a freeway system with overpasses, and it actually operate like a highway of that capacity should, without having the problems with signals and other items. I think that we're gonna, now again, it's not in the 8-year plan, so I don't want us to jump up and down that we're gonna see something really soon. But there are items coming that will benefit that stretch of road.
Well, and Scott, I contemplate the cost of widening the whole thing to 3 lanes each way versus the cost of interchanges
Right.
and removing the points of
Then it doesn't need
vehicular
to be 6
conflict.
lanes. Doesn't need to be 6 lanes at the
It needs to be way
interchanges.
safer.
It could be both. I don't know. I haven't seen anything yet, but we'll be getting more information on that. As soon as I get that information and it's shared with me, I will bring it back to the next CPTC. And we will discuss it, and we'll have an open conversation about what they're proposing.
If there weren't all those traffic lights, it'd be a lot easier to get to Lloyd Noble Center from.
It'd be a
Okay,
lot
so-
easier to get lots of places. And just as a reminder to the committee, next month, ODOT is going to be coming with their consultant to share with us the findings of the safety audit from 24th or 36th. They went all the way up to, I believe, 108. I'm having struggling with that.
Okay, Highway 9
Okay.
safety audit.
The Highway 9 safety audit, I'm sorry. So they'll be bringing that information with what their recommendations are. And there's some items on that we were already, we went for a grant to do some lighting at street lighting at intersections. We didn't get that, but we're still looking at options and opportunities to be able to move forward with some of the low-hanging fruit for that corridor.
I would say on our next CPTC, maybe a discussion about the ODOT, the portal they have right now with the corridor, the Robinson to 4th Street and more. And they're taking comment on that, and they've got concept designs of each
Is that
interchange.
still gonna be open by our
I don't
next
know if it'll
meeting?
still be open,
That
but,
may be closed by our next, I can't
Okay.
remember the dates on it, but that may be closed by our next meeting.
well, everybody, I would encourage you to take a look at it, and if you have, there's a couple of points on it I saw, like the Franklin Bridge and how that would connect to flood. That seemed a little weird to me, but if there's anything you notice about it that we need to comment as a city before anything goes forward, let Scott know.
You can go to the ODOT website and go under public meetings, I think, and there's one, it's virtual, they give you a quick description of it. You can go through and look at what all the roadway discussions are, where new and future changes would be made. It is going to a one-way frontage road
And
system.
it's got an interactive map where you can see what it looks like now, and then you like move the slide,
Yeah.
and it shows how it all be reconstructed, each bridge, each interchange.
There's a lot of information there. It's-
On and off ramps at Rock Creek Road, how that would work and where, and all that type of stuff, so.
Yeah, I do keep telling people they're not really gonna do on and off
Not at the
ramps
bridge,
as
yeah.
much,
It's like
but
a slip.
they call them X ramps. It's more like what you see in Texas, where you may get off half a mile or 2 miles before and travel the service road and then get back on a mile or 2 down. So they're not gonna be building an interchange as such at Rock Creek, but there will be access to and from I-35.
Same at Franklin for a
Yeah.
bridge there, so. Okay, that's what the questions I had about ODOT stuff. Questions about OTA stuff that you just talked about?
No, you answered my question. The only one I had was on the Highway 9. Whenever you're saying service, what services they were going to put in. I was just curious about that, but you answered it immediately. So
Yeah, and I do not want to, I want them to present what they found, and I want them to be able to answer your questions. I don't think I could do that effectively. But they're gonna have their consultant here and ODOT will be here and they're coming to try to help us.
Councilmember Grant?
So on the OTA agreement,
Yes,
when is that an agenda item?
Couple
we're trying to
weeks.
get it off for the 10th.
Mario Day.
March 10th. Okay, thank you.
Say Mario Day. Councilmember Bruce?
I just really have a question. When a major project's right between two municipalities like this, and so you have the OTA bringing in a lot of material, just tons and tons of material. How does that work out for allocation of, tax that are associated with that material? Does
So,
that make sense?
there's a ton of paperwork that, agreements can be reached to identify a point of sale for such construction materials. There are big swaths of products and companies that are exempt from sales tax right off the bat. I think there's 41 exempt products or companies that the state legislature has approved in the last handful of years. If the product is not exempt and the company buying it's not exempt, agreements can be reached to say, hey, why don't you do all this paperwork for us and have this address, your laydown yard, be the point of sale. And so it is achievable. And you'll see that in, as an example, in the entertainment district tax increment finance map, it is anticipated that the developers will identify that real estate as the point of sale. And then that will also receive a match from the State Department of Commerce's sales tax. So it's doable. It's a bunch of paperwork and you gotta have everybody agree to do the paperwork to get that sales tax allocation.
Any other questions, comments about this item? Okay. Okay, well, thank you very much, staff. Appreciate your time and work on this. We had a full council here for this committee today.
Sounds like a study session.